Okay, everybody, I'm going to can a recipe that came out of this ball book, the all-new Book of Canning and Preserving, and it's a meal in a jar, and it's supposed to be the pot roast one. I don't have beef, but I do have pork. And because I have pork and it calls for bay leaves and thyme, what I'm going to use instead is some of my fresh rosemary. Everything else will be the same as the recipe. Into each jar will go about a pound of pork that's been cut into 2-inch cubes. Half a cup each of potatoes, carrots, and onion. And then a 1/4 cup of celery. It'll have salt and pepper. I've already got my jars heating up. It also calls for broth, and my broth is back here simmering. So it's about ready. I can turn it off in just a second. I've got my towel soaked with vinegar, as always, to wipe the rims of the jars with. Got a canning funnel, jar lifter, measuring cup. Got a knife to cut up the garlic. Got a 1/2 teaspoon measuring spoon for the pepper, 1 teaspoon for the salt, and I've got my chopstick that I'm going to use for debubbling. My lids and rings are over here. They're already washed and cleaned. They do not have to be hot. I'm finding pretty good success not heating them. So let me get started. I'll do 1 jar to start with, and then I'll bring you back when I've got them in the canner. So I'll take 1 jar out, change hands here. Take 1 jar out of the canner. I think I've got enough things ready to do 5 quarts. The original recipe allows for 2 quarts or 4 pints, but I just multiplied the recipe. I just multiplied the recipe so I could make 5 because I have quite a bit of pork. Okay. I'm going to start out by putting in the vegetables, and I'll put the meat on top. This is all raw packed. Do it this way. Half a cup of potatoes. Half a cup of carrots. Half a cup of onions. And then a 1/4 cup of celery. So I'm just going to use my 1/2 cup measure and just fill it halfway. That'll be a 1/4 cup. Okay. Then, about a pound of the meat that's been cut up. I cut it up, pretty big chunks. Okay, a teaspoon of salt. You can see my salt got damp. I'm going to put a tiny sprig fresh rosemary down the side of it. And I'll be right back after I slice the garlic. Okay, I've got the garlic in there sliced up. I went ahead and put my pepper in there. Now I'll put my broth in it. Okay, I've got the broth and the chicken heated up. I've got all my equipment out here, I don't think I've forgotten anything. So now I'm going to start filling jars. I've had them heating in my canner as I usually do. And this is a time when I really wish I did have my canning funnel with me. I totally forgot to bring it, and I can't find Mom's. It may be over at my sister's house, I don't know. But this is going to be tricky. Getting this chicken in here. Okay, it's hot. See, there, I spilled some. Anyway, I'll fill one jar. Let's just get a little out at a time. You see how handy those funnels are? If I had the funnel with me, I wouldn't have an issue with getting the chicken in the jars. Now, when you do this, you don't pack it way down in there real hard. You can tap it a little bit, but you don't want it just shoved and crammed in there. You want to have it where the liquid will flow around the chicken in the jar. See, I can go ahead, I can push a little bit, get it where there's any empty spots in the jar are filled without packing it real tight. Just a little bit more. Anyway, when you're doing raw meat, when you raw pack, which I rarely do, it releases its own juices, and when it does that, the meat will shrink a little. It'll back off a little, so that then there's a lot of juices going around the meat. This is already cooked, so it's not going to be releasing anything. The noise in the TV in the background, I forgot to turn it down. It's just the Weather Channel. Bring it up to 1-inch headspace. Work out the air bubbles. Wipe the rim of the jar very well. Put on a lid. Put on a ring. Remember what I've told you before about how to get the, well, I don't have the ring on straight. Hold on. There it goes. Now, you just tighten it until it starts to turn on the towel. There. That's it. That's all you tighten it. Put it in the canner. Continue filling one jar at a time. If you do one jar at a time, then your food, your jars, everything, none of this stuff cools down. It stays nice and hot the whole time, and your canner is heated too. I've got 5 quarts of pork roast in a jar with the potatoes and carrots and onions and celery. And then I had a little leftover that I put in a regular quart jar, regular mouth, with a lot of the broth, so it's going to be kind of a soup. Now, once again, we're waiting for the steam to build up. It will not vent from here, although some will come out. I'm waiting for it to vent from here. When it begins to vent from here, I will time it for 10 minutes. Okay, as you can see, there is some steam coming out of here. That's not what I don't care about that though. It'll come up on its own. What I'm looking at is the steam that's starting out of here. When that starts blowing a full steady stream of steam, my timer will be set for 10 minutes. Okay, it's hard to see, but the steam is starting to come out. And you want a full 10-minute venting time to get all the air out of the canner. You don't want any air in here. Air will not carry heat. Excuse me, the way that steam does. So you want to vent all the air out of the canner. And then I'll lock that down. You can see, no pressure yet. Okay, here's the final product. It's been a little while since I got them out of the canner. They're very cool now. They're not done though. They won't be finished until tomorrow, and I'll put them up. They were boiling when they got done. And as you can see, this is one reason why I don't like raw packed meat, because it gets this webbing on here. And that's just the proteins from the meat. It doesn't hurt anything, just it's unsightly. And it makes the jars a little harder to clean. But there we go. 5 quarts of pork roast and 1 quart, since I just had a little left, of a basically soup or a gravy base. Thanks for watching.